come to United as well, but we'll just skip because they've sort of interlinked these. Man City, Fulham, and Chelsea, Leeds. 2 incidents in it. They're on about people saying you've got to go down now to get fouled because obviously City beat Fulham 2-0. Sterling got a penalty for minimal of touches, didn't he? And then Poveda for Leeds.
Yeah.
He did get, well, I thought it was a foul. I don't know about you two.
Yeah.
Kicked him under the foot, stayed on his feet, didn't get a penalty.
Yeah.
So can we really blame players for diving? Because they're not giving it, are they? Unless they throw themselves to the ground.
I mean, for me, the players are their own downfall. You look at Sterling. Did he need to go down for me? No. If he doesn't go down, does he get given as a penalty? No. He's gone down because he knows it's a penalty if he goes down. But for me, it's become so much now that diving has become more involved in the game that referees are now scared. I mean, I don't know why, because they've got the access of VAR. They've now got that backup, but we all know what VAR is and what we all think of VAR. But for me, players have been the ones that have made it to be what it is. I don't think it's referees. Obviously, they've had a part to play in it. But for me, the players all the time, the diving's become more and more frequent, and referees are getting scared now to give a penalty for them to backfire. So the reason Sterling's gone down on minimal contact is because he knows that if he goes down, he's got a better chance of getting a penalty. And you've got someone like Poveda, who's naive, he's only, 20-year-old or 19-year-old or something. He's not got that experience of the Premier League. If that is a Sterling-style player, he goes down and he gets the penalty. It's virtually the exact same from what happened to Robertson on, I can't remember who it was now, over a week. But Robertson did the exact same in the last minute of the game. Kicked the bottom of someone's foot, they went down, and then VAR gave it as a penalty. This one, like you said, almost an identical situation. I think it's a joke. It really is.
See, I blame refs a bit because I see it from the viewpoint of if they give the Poveda one where he doesn't go down, and then they don't give the Sterling one where he dives, then you'd like to think that'll eradicate dive. It'll cut down diving. Unless that's how I see it, and I think because we shouldn't be encouraging him to dive. Apparently, managers tell him to dive now. They tell him if you get a touch in box, go down. Whereas Poveda was honest and stayed on his feet and got a penalty for it. I just think.
I personally think this can all be fixed with some competent VAR officials. If you've got someone in the video room, all they need to do is rewatch that Sterling one. We don't even need to look at referees because there is too much pressure on referees initially because it's so hard for them to see and get it right. You know how hard it is watching slow-mo reviews. But if we had someone in the VAR room, just competent enough to look at that and think, right, the Sterling one, there's just not enough contact, not a penalty. And then the other ones where they don't go down, then you could probably question, right, there's quite a bit of contact there. Do we give it or not? Nobody would go down. If the referees didn't give these light contact ones, VAR officials didn't give them, they wouldn't go down as much as they do. But they know they're going to get it. They know they're going to get it.
If they'd have booked Sterling, then I think it'd be a lot better than... For me, I blame refs really more than the players because I just think they've given him the option to go down.
We've moved into this era where now, if there's any contact, it's acceptable to go down. Yeah, the commentators give it all the time. There is contact, and it's like it's contact sport. There's going to be contact.
Exactly.
Yeah. It should only be a penalty.
That annoys me when they say that.
It should only be a penalty if it sort of prevents you moving forward or somehow affects how you're going to kick the ball, some disadvantage, but. That Sterling one's not. It's barely a touch on him. But it's like that one, the Bournemouth one. Was it Bournemouth? We were talking about one, weren't we? Where it went. It weren't Bournemouth. I can't remember who it was. I think it was could have been the United game where they went one end and then went up the other end, and they should have been a penalty one end and didn't get it. Well, everyone was saying the other one was a penalty, but it was the same. I think it was enough. Yeah,
I can't remember actually.
I didn't think there was enough contact in that one, but a lot of people said there should have been, but. I didn't think it should have been really because they weren't enough to affect the player. So
back to what you said though, Don. Like you said, referees they do have the ability to change it. From your point of view, like you say, you see it as referees need to do better. For me, everyone needs to do better. It's got to a point now where it's becoming a ballerina game because players are just going down on the slightest contact and then looking straight at the referee. And then the referees feel pressured into it. And like you said, the referees, they shouldn't feel pressured into it. They're the ones to officiate the game. There shouldn't be any external influence on their decisions. But we all know that, they're all human and they always do. But they should be professional enough to make their own decision. And they obviously haven't been, and that's why they brought VAR in there as well. And then they've not been in there, even without that external influence. So like James says, there needs to be a serious shape of movement in the officiating rooms. Not only
that's the
VAR,
biggest thing for me,
but on the pitch as well, because the refereeing, obviously I see it from the Championship side, but Premier League and Championship, the whole Football League for me now, the officiating has just gone down such a grade. It's unbelievable.
Oh yeah, it needs to. The whole philosophy has to change with the players as well, like you say, because like managers are telling them to go down as soon as they get a touch, and they shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't have to do that. But that's why I feel refs more, because I feel managers telling them that because they know if they don't, they won't get up. And there's that much riding on it, especially in the Premier League now, isn't there?
That's the biggest problem for me at the minute. I've got no issue with VAR, the technology. I think if it's used correctly, it's brilliant. It saves so many what have been obvious errors, but it's also correcting non-obvious errors and things that aren't correct. Some of these offsides that rule needs to be rethinked now with VAR. I actually did see something that I think someone mentioned it was the Danish league or somewhere like that. So what they've done, and this would actually be really good to sort of rule out these close offsides. They have thicker lines for the defender and the attacker, and if they cross at any point, doesn't get the original decision stands.
Yeah,
which is actually a very good way of doing it.
Like you say though, it's the whole phrase of clear and obvious. They made it clear to us when it was first coming in that VAR will only overrule clear and obvious errors. Well, for me, like you said, there's only been a handful of clear and obvious errors that have come through. But they seem to get involved at least 5-6 times a game. And like you say, it's these little niggles that the referee has seen it and he's made his judgment on the field. But it's not a clear and obvious error then. Because if he's made his judgment and it is, that one that can be given as a 50-50, it's not a clear and obvious.
It's really tricky for me because I always think, like, for example, like say someone is offside, but it's closer than, say it's ruled out as not an obvious error and they let it go, but he is offside. And then the next week, someone's onside and it gets ruled out because the referees give offside. It's not obvious. It's like, well, that was given for a goal for onside, and that was given a goal for offside, or wasn't given. Yeah. So then then it's like, well, that's not right either.
No, like you said, obviously that's the whole reason that VAR got brought in. It was to make it so that it was a fair game, almost to speak. But for me, that's part of football.
We're still getting wrong decisions with it, aren't we?
That's what I mean. Like,
we might as well go back to how we were and still have wrong decisions.
That goes back to the officials, though, doesn't it? For me, that's the issue.
You look back for me like 6 years or so, and you did have these little ones that were half a centimetre over and under, that you'd get one given 1 week and then the next week it'd be against you. For me, they're the ones that they need to be bypassed. And I know that you'll have them people scrutinising, well, why are we having VAR if it's not going to be used the way in which it can be? But for me, it's taking so long in the games. It's taking 3-4 minutes for them to come to a conclusive decision, which is just too long. Like I say, I stand by the fact there should be a timer on a VAR machine. And if you've not made your decision in that point, there's nothing to it. I also want to start to hear what the referees are saying. Because if you watch the Australian League, they do the same. They give it, like rugby union do, or rugby league, I don't know which one it is. I want to hear what that conversation is, and I want to see the decisions that they're going through, because then it might help us understand, actually, we've been in the wrong. They've seen that. I can now understand why they've given that decision. We're left in the dark. We don't know what is going on, and a decision gets given, and then everyone's up in arms about it. But if there is a reason for it, let us know it. It's only giving us a little more clarity on why it is. And
they need to explain the rules more to fans as well.
Yeah.
But I won't be. If they got rid of it next week, I'd be more than happy with it. I hate it now.
Like you said, though, it's people like you. You said that you'd prefer to be in the Championship in this way. Obviously, the Premier League, the experience it gives you, obviously the money it gives you, the way that your club grows. That's one side of it. But for just the love of the game, the Championship is a much better league for it, because it just runs smoothly without it.
Yeah.
I would. Obviously, everyone wants to be in that top league. I want to be in the Premier League. But I won't be devastated if Burnley were to go down. So I'm just sick of it. I'm getting bored at Premier League. I've got a friend who's a West Brom fan, and she doesn't even watch it now because she's that bored of it already. So
I just worry too much. I'll always want to be in Premier League because I just know how good it is for the club. How much every year you stay in the Premier League, how much money you get. We know how detrimental.
Anyway.
If you go down, you see how many clubs just end up rotting.
Yeah.
That's what worries me the most. But going back to that, like clear and obvious with what you said about the timer, that's another example where we need something to define what would be an obvious error. So, for example, with a decision, if it's not made within 30 seconds, then it's an obvious error. It's an obvious, it's not clear and obvious. Yeah. And then, like in the Danish league, I think it is with the lines, and if they cross, that's another way of defining whether it's not clear and obvious. And then that way, that's the only tricky thing. There needs to be something that defines an obvious error.